to welcome you to my podcast, Soma Says.
Having me.
Sure. And then I wanted to, find out, I always like learning about other professions, what drew you to this, what your background is, why you choose to do what you do.
I always wanted to be in finance, and financial planning was always drawn to me. And so I really took it seriously. I earned my certified financial planner designation, which took many years and tests and studying. And it's kind of the gold standard of financial planners to make sure you have that fiduciary responsibility. You always put your clients' interests, above your own. Lots of transparency when it comes to fees. My why is really my mom. She went through a divorce and made decisions with her heart and not her head. And because of that, I have dedicated a lot of my practice to helping divorcees make more informed decisions and empowering them to increase their financial literacy in order to have better outcomes for their future. And I'm just a big proponent of, in general, everyone knowing their numbers and having open financial communication, as well as incorporating financial wellness into their overall wellness.
Hey everyone, big shout out to Ariel Vivleka, founder of Finally All Natural. Ariel is on a mission to educate people about hidden ingredients in skincare products. Did you know the FDA allows incidental ingredients that aren't labeled or disclosed? That's why Finally All Natural is special. They focus on how ingredients are created, excluding extracts and essential oils, and have world-first formulas that work for a variety of skin types. They've also partnered with CleanHub for eco-friendly packaging and offer an exclusive organic face oil that has been scientifically proven to boost the proteins in your skin, enhancing hydration and strengthening the skin barrier. All 100% vegan. If you're into holistic skincare or non-toxic living, Ariel is your go-to expert. Keep up the amazing work, Ariel. Get in touch with her today. All the links are in description below.
Why do you think it's particularly important for women? And give us some examples, because I see it in my practice, given the breadth of what I do and the range of patients that I see. So I know what the examples look like, but I'd like to hear from you. With your clients, what do you see yourself helping them through?
I mean, all sorts of transitions. I think a big one is taking a step away from your career to become a mom, I think is one that we don't really put a lot of thought into. We just kind of do it, myself included. So that balancing act between being a mom and having a career. And nowadays, a lot of the women are often the breadwinners, or we need to have dual family incomes, and both, spouses have careers. So what that looks like financially to take that break emotionally and financially from the workplace is a transition that I think is really hard to navigate. And divorce is often a big transition that's not a very pleasant one, but when you go through a divorce, there are very heightened emotions, and we're taking, a family and ultimately dividing it. And it's not always equal. It's not always fair. And everyone's financial literacy is not always the same. So when I come into those situations, really like to educate both parties on the long-term consequences of the choices that they're making today. And not always so easy, because when you're in the heightened emotions of divorce, you're just trying to get through the day. You're not thinking 5, 10, 20 years from now. So having a financial ally kind of point those things out and poke holes in some of the planning will just create that awareness and make better choices.
I want to take a moment to give a huge shout out to Melissa Murphy Pavone and her amazing team at Mindful Financial Partners. Melissa has over 18 years of experience as a certified financial planner and divorce financial analyst, And what truly sets her apart is how she values people over portfolios. Whether you're going through major life changes or just want to take control of your financial future, Melissa's approach is all about aligning your wealth with the life you truly want to live. She doesn't just focus on growing wealth, but also on creating balance and purpose in your financial journey. You can get in touch with her at her website, mindfulfinancialpartners.com, and you can find all the links in the description. Be sure to check it out.
In my practice, there's a lot of preventative stuff that I do. How does that look like in your practice when you have women who are young, who may be single, who may be newly married? How do you?
Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of financial communication if you are going to get married and commingle your finances, because marriage is a financial commitment as well. And I am a proponent of prenuptial agreements. I don't think they're bad, especially statistically, people are getting married a little later in life and they're coming into marriage with assets, with businesses, with, stock options, with equity. And so it's nice to take just a snapshot of where you are when you enter and kind of carve those things out, saying we're not going to build this wonderful life together and share on this, but just taking a snapshot of where you are, I think is a healthy way to say, if this were not to work out, we're going to carve these pieces out and then we'll discuss, what we build together as a future. But women in general are caretakers, right? So just like you said, you're taking care of your mom, women are becoming moms, and women also live longer. So we need to plan for all of those things. And I think the earlier people get started knowing their numbers and saving, one of the biggest things I see with the younger demographic is they're earning great salaries. They're, graduating from college, earning great salaries. They're not saving anything, and they're earning a lot, but they're spending more than they're actually making. And it's that we call it the lifestyle creep. Like, as you continue to make more money, you continue to spend more money and you're not actually getting ahead of the game. And so to instill those really good saving habits of increasing your 401k contribution, of making sure you have an emergency fund, all of those things, the earlier start them, the better. And it just becomes part of your normal, and you be able to see the power of compound interest. And then it starts to get exciting. And then people are starting to say, oh, hey, I'm getting my bonus. I'm going to put that here. I'm going to get that here. And then that's kind of when the light goes off and they become really an investor and they take control of their own financial future.
Are you a woman with big financial dreams but no idea how to reach them? You'll love working with Dr. Annie Cole, a money coach who's on a mission to help women earn more, build wealth, and retire early. In her 20s, Annie was a burnt-out social worker, struggling on a $26,000 salary. By her 30s, she had climbed the ladder to a vice president role, invested over $350,000, owned $1 million in real estate, and cut 20 years off of her retirement date. She now runs her own coaching business, Money Essentials for Women, and inspires women to step into new levels of money mastery and confidence. Ready to see how Annie can help you? Set up a free financial consultation at www.money-essential.com/coaching. While you're exploring her services, grab a copy of her new book, 101 Ways to Build Wealth, at money-essentials.com/book.
You've talked a lot about some of the challenges that you encounter. If you have to compare us women to men, what are the differences in the financial challenges that you have seen?
I think it depends upon the demographic. The clients I'm working with now that are in their 50s and 60s and they're on the verge of a divorce, they left the financial role or financial duties, we call it the CFO spouse, to their spouse, their significant other, regardless if they worked or not, or if they stayed home with the kids. And we're seeing a lot in my experience, primarily women saying, hey, like, I don't pay our bills. I just kind of blindly sign the tax return. I don't know where my mortgage is. And so there's some of that, or they kind of just like, this was my role and I took care of the kids and I know all of, the PTA stuff at the birthday parties. And then, they kind of, our spouse took care of the finances and the bills, taxes and the investments. And that's a big shift because the younger generation, that's not the case. So I think it really depends upon the demographics there. But I feel like with financial empowerment, female, feminism, everyone, we're now equal and they want to know exactly where it is, what it is, where's the titling and everything. So I think that's shifting. So they won't be in those same situations, or if they're going to divorce later, it's going to look differently than the divorcees that I'm talking with now.
I think I'm reflecting back to when I was a young medical student and at that time, right, like the only goal and focus was to get through medical school, to get through residency. You would look at your paycheck. I mean, this was, God knows, a million years ago. And I was living in New York City. And I was like, okay, more than half of my paycheck is going to go towards my rent. So, and then the other, probably half was going towards my loans. So financial planning was probably the last thought. And, I come from an immigrant family, so saving is still was still in my vocabulary, but not necessarily in the way that it should have been. It took me a long time to kind of learn the ropes a bit. So how would you advise women from early on? Like, what should we be reading? What should we be listening to in terms of podcasts that might help us learn about this stuff so we're not totally blind to the situation?
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a financial ally. And if that's a financial coach, a financial planner, a financial advisor, use that person as a resource so that you understand where you are. A lot of times, and I'm thinking back to personal experience, I had younger cousins who got jobs and they're like, hey, I got this, benefits package for a 401k and I don't know what I'm circling or what am I picking, and I would help them all do it. But I'm like, what about all the other people that are up, starting their jobs and they don't have a cousin who's a financial planner? What do? They're just kind of blindly going without that guidance. So I think reading, listening, but it has to be a professional. There's a lot of, rhetoric out there that's on the internet, that's on TikTok, that's on, that are just people's opinions, but not necessarily people with a financial background and degrees and certifications and designations. So if you find one, grab one and really learn from them and let them kind of be your accountability partner.
And what does it take to find a financial planner whom you can trust? What should we be looking for in terms of their credentials and other things that, that we should be looking for when it comes to finding someone?
Yeah, I think it's super important that you connect with the person on a personal level so that you can be honest with them. Nowadays, thanks to technology and the internet, it doesn't have to be kind of like your local person that has an office, on Main Street, and you don't have to use your parents' financial advisor. You have the ability to seek out really somebody that works for you. So I think that is really important to make sure the values are lined up. But I would definitely recommend a certified financial planner because it's a rigorous background credential to make sure that they are trained and a fiduciary for you.
Yeah, it is so important, because I see so many different types of patients and I see a lot of women in my practice. And as you can imagine, through various stages of life. And it's always shocking to me when, it's devastating, honestly, when I hear about the stories at times and, there's no career because they've given up. It's been maybe 20 years since they've worked. And, suddenly they find themselves in a situation where they don't even know how they're going to support themselves, let alone maybe their kids as well.
Yeah.
So, these are the situations where, that at times I don't necessarily know how to deal with that. I deal with the medical and sometimes the psychological aspects of it, but it's like they have to start from scratch. What do you think leads to this the difference? I don't want to make a stereotype between men and women, but I'll be honest with you, and if I have to count, the number of men that I know who are financially more aware, it's a lot more. What do you think the difference is between us?
I think generationally, like that's just kind of those norms that we're slowly breaking. But if you think back, moms didn't work back in the day, right? Like their job was to get married and be a mom and take care of the house. And so they left kind of the financial aspect to the spouse that, kind of was working and dealing with the bills and the money coming in and going out. And that's not really the case anymore. Most families need two incomes or sometimes more to survive in, our inflation-filled world. So I think that it's changing now and that it's more, I wouldn't say it's equal, but it's becoming more equal or more balanced, and that women do want to know about their finances and are, contributing, and often sometimes they're the breadwinners in the families. So I think that in the past it was that way, but I don't think it will be that way for the future. And I think that regardless of where you are in your marriage, the financial communication is really key. And it doesn't matter, if you're happily married or you're getting divorced or, there's so many transitions that we go through within our lifetime. So to have that really solid financial communication will help in all aspects and all transitions that we go through.
Very, very true. Very true. I think, one of the things that you had mentioned is that women tend to live longer than men. And should we be planning our financial future as soon as we get out of school or even before? Like, should this be something that, we do as adolescents, or is something that parents should be helping set up for their children beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, the earlier the better is my, kind of mantra. And it's true, most women will outlive their spouse, and, with the advances in technology and, medical world, we are living longer. And so that coupled together, we need to make our retirement money last longer. So it's really imperative to think about long-term care, to make sure there's an emergency fund. And when you're thinking about retirement planning, really factor in the cost of healthcare in retirement.
Yeah, can we touch on that? That is such an important thing because, I also see a fair share of patients 65 and older. And as I was mentioning, there are times when I see patients and it's almost shocking to me, right, that they're not aware of certain things that may or may not be covered. And to even think about, just the care that sometimes people need and the costs involved with that, it can be very daunting. So how do you advise, and this obviously applies for both men and women, but so how do you advise your clients about that? This is something that I don't necessarily see on a large scale basis with my patients.
Yeah, I think it's very important that the financial advisor, financial planner that you're working with takes into consideration the cost of healthcare. And if that's, making sure that there's long-term care put into place prior to retirement, or just really being realistic about what healthcare is going to cost in the future. And it really depends upon, are you on a fixed income, or is there generational wealth there? And unfortunately, it really depends upon how early you start, but the earlier you start, the better off you are. And just to be aware of it and educate yourself on, okay, what are my options and how much do these options cost, and what are the benefits of all these different insurance policies that are, offered, I think it's really important.
It almost feels for certain patients, and I see this in patients who are in their early 60s, it's almost like this mad rush to get to 65, you know? Okay, I made it. I got my Medicare. I'm okay now. But, that gap between 60 and 65, and as you know, that can be, in our 50s as well, that can be a tricky time when, you may not always be employed and it may be hard to find the ageism is here in our society, and it may be difficult to find another job. That's like that age, that 62 to 65 is when I see that tension happening.
And oftentimes people want to turn on Social Security
Right.
early and saying, okay, I'm going to turn this on, and not realizing that they're giving themselves a permanent haircut for the rest of their life.
Yes.
So that part of the holistic financial planning that I do for the pre-retirees is to really optimize the Social Security and see, does it make sense to turn this on, or does it make sense to wait and take from a different source, even if it's in the short term, to allow that to grow so that you don't give yourself a permanent, you not be penalized permanently. And sometimes people can't see that map, right? They're just like, okay, I don't have any money. I can't get a new job. I'm turning this on. This will help. But then I'll create a spreadsheet to kind of look and see, okay, this is what it looks like if we turn it on now. This is what it looks like if we wait, and look at that difference. And if you live, another 30 years, what that is over time. And so those are the conversations that you really have to peel back the layer of the onion and really go deep. And sometimes it's math and financial, and sometimes it's emotional, and together we work through it.
That's really great that you talk about this, because these are not the conversations that you necessarily have with friends. And even as an internist, I'm sometimes surprised that I'm having these kind of conversations, right? Because I don't think my patients, not everyone, but that some of my patients are not necessarily talking about this. So I find myself talking about these kind of things with them. Do you have an advance directive? Have you seen your lawyer for that? Do you have someone who's helping you plan? Yes, you're deciding to take Social Security, but did you talk to someone to make sure that that is financially, the best thing, for you to do? So, because again, here in this country, I do believe your health is very closely connected to how much money you have, unfortunately.
It is. And with all the money in the world, it's no good if you're sick. So there's definitely that connection there. And then together, what you want this money to do for you, and the life that you want to live, and the legacy you want to create, I think are really important conversations.
So, So where can we find you in terms of, your website, your social media? How can my listeners listen,
My website is mindfulfinancialpartners.com. And my contact information will be there on LinkedIn. My name is Melissa Murphy Pavone, and I'd love to talk and connect with people. I offer complimentary kind of consultations just to make sure it's a good fit. And if somebody wants somebody in person, I'm happy to recommend another financial planner that's in their area.
That's fantastic, Melissa. Thank you so much for coming on to this podcast. I really think that this will serve a lot of my female listeners, even my male listeners. We'll include them too, but definitely my female listeners. And I look forward to our second podcast in the near future.
Likewise. Thanks so much for having me.